The biting wind of the high plains howled a mournful song, a constant companion to the loneliness that gnawed at Silas, the lumberjack. He was a man carved from the wilderness, his hands calloused from wrestling timber, his heart hardened by the solitude of the towering pines. But even the strongest trees eventually yearn for sunlight, and Silas, after years spent felling giants, felt a deep ache for something more than the rustle of leaves and the whisper of the wind. He came to the dusty town of Redemption that day, not for companionship but for supplies. His cabin was running low and the unforgiving winter was closing in. He needed flour, salt, and perhaps a new axe head. He certainly didn't expect to find a woman, discarded like a broken tool, her fate hanging in the balance. The town square was a canvas of grim realities. A makeshift platform stood center, the crude auction block where dreams were traded for coin. The air hung thick with unspoken judgments, the whispers of the townsfolk sharper than any knife. Silas, accustomed to the silence of the forest, felt the weight of their gazes. He saw the woman first, a silhouette against the harsh sunlight, her form gaunt, her posture etched with a weariness that mirrored his own. She stood alone, a pariah in a sea of indifference, her eyes downcast, avoiding the cruel scrutiny of the crowd. He knew the story etched on her face before he heard the auctioneer's gravelly voice. Rejection, abandonment, the crushing weight of being unwanted. These were the specters that haunted her. Her name, he would later learn, was Clara. But in that moment, she was just the woman, a commodity to be bartered, a problem to be solved with dollars and cents. The townsfolk, their faces a mixture of curiosity and disdain, kept their distance, their eyes darting away as if her very presence was a contagion. He saw the flicker of fear in her eyes, a desperate plea for escape from a fate worse than death. Her hands were clasped tightly, knuckles white as if trying to hold on to the last vestiges of her dignity. Silas, a man who understood the language of hardship, felt a pang of something he hadn't felt in years, a stirring of empathy, a recognition of a shared loneliness. He found himself drawn to the scene, his heart pounding a rhythm of uncertainty against his ribs. He was a man of the woods, not a savior. He knew nothing of tending to a woman, of sharing his life, of the complexities of human connection. He had come for supplies, to replenish his solitary existence. Yet the woman's plight, the utter desolation that radiated from her, stirred something within him. He thought of his own empty cabin, the echoing silence that followed each day's labor. He thought of the long, cold nights and the gnawing feeling of being utterly, irrevocably alone. The auctioneer's voice sliced through the air, offering her up to the highest bidder. Silas knew, with a certainty that surprised even himself, that he couldn't simply walk away. He was about to make a choice that would forever alter the course of both their lives, a choice born not of logic, but of a deep, unspoken understanding of the human heart. Silas, wrestling with his conscience, felt the weight of the crowd's expectations, or rather their lack thereof, pressed down on him. He was a solitary figure, a man content with the company of trees and the rhythm of the seasons. What could he possibly offer this woman? The auctioneer's voice, a relentless hammer, brought him back to the present. The bids were meager, whispers of pennies, reflecting the town's low opinion of her. He watched her, her shoulders slumped, her gaze fixed on the dusty ground, a picture of utter defeat. He took a deep breath, the scent of pine and wood smoke filling his lungs, a familiar comfort in this unfamiliar situation. "I came here for supplies, not to change a life," he muttered under his breath, the words a desperate plea to himself. But the image of her face, the silent despair etched in her features, wouldn't release him. The silence of the crowd was deafening, broken only by the rustle of the wind. Time seemed to slow, stretching the moment into an eternity. He saw the auctioneer's eyes calculating, assessing the dwindling interest. He saw the woman's gaze lift, a flicker of something akin to hope, a desperate prayer. Furthermore, consider the immense emotional burden she carried. Abandonment, the stigma of being unwanted. These were wounds that ran far deeper than any physical ailment. She had likely endured hardships that Silas, in his isolated existence, could scarcely imagine. He knew the sting of loneliness, the ache of isolation, but her plight resonated with a different kind of suffering, a suffering born of rejection and societal scorn. Building on this, however, he also recognized the potential for a new beginning. He could offer her a refuge from the storm, a chance to rebuild her life free from the judgment of the town. The auctioneer's voice cracked, preparing to close the bidding. Going once, going twice. Silas felt a surge of adrenaline, a primal urge to act. He raised his hand, his calloused fingers trembling slightly. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath that rippled through the square. The auctioneer's eyes widened, surprised by the sudden interest. "Do I hear?" he began, his voice trailing off as he realized the only bid was Silas's. Consequently, the focus shifted entirely to him. He stood there, exposed, vulnerable, a man who had just committed to an act that would reverberate through the rest of his days. The silence that followed was even more profound than before, punctuated only by the frantic beating of his own heart. The auctioneer, finally recovering from the shock, declared the sale. The woman's gaze locked onto his, a mixture of disbelief and a fragile, tentative hope blossoming in her eyes. It was a look that would forever be etched in Silas's memory, a silent promise of a future yet unwritten. Another crucial layer is the inherent risk. Silas, a man of action, had never been one for grand gestures or pronouncements. He was by nature a man of few words, preferring the quiet companionship of the wilderness. Now, he was thrust into a situation that demanded a level of emotional investment he hadn't prepared for. He had no experience with relationships, no knowledge of how to navigate the complexities of human interaction. He was stepping into the unknown, taking a leap of faith that could either lead to redemption or to further heartbreak. Now, consider how this applies when you face a decision that challenges your comfort zone. Like Silas, you might feel a surge of doubt, the fear of failure, the weight of expectations. But sometimes the most rewarding paths are those that require the greatest courage. The courage to step outside your self-imposed boundaries, to embrace the unknown, and to offer a helping hand when it is needed most. Silas, in that moment, made a choice that transcended the simple act of buying a woman. He chose to believe in the possibility of a better future, a future where loneliness could be replaced by companionship and despair by hope. He chose to defy the expectations of the town and to forge his own path one step at a time. The stark contrast between the bustling town square and the quiet solitude of the journey that followed was immediately apparent. After the transaction, a silence settled over the crowd, broken only by the creak of the wagon wheels and the rhythmic thud of the horses' hooves. Silas, usually comfortable in his own skin, felt a new kind of awkwardness. He glanced at Clara, who sat beside him, her posture stiff, her gaze fixed on the passing landscape. The vast expanse of the plains stretched before them, a visual metaphor for the unknown future that lay ahead. Furthermore, the journey itself became a crucible, forging a tentative bond between two souls. The initial silence was profound, a space filled with unspoken anxieties and unresolved questions. He knew he had to break it, but the words felt clumsy, inadequate. He began with small gestures, offering her water, covering her with a blanket, as the evening chill descended. Gradually she responded, her guarded reserve slowly giving way to a fragile trust. Building on this, the landscape itself became a silent witness to their evolving relationship. The towering peaks of the mountains, the endless expanse of the prairie, and the star-studded nights all served as a backdrop to their developing connection. They shared the simple tasks of setting up camp, preparing meals, and tending to the horses. Each shared task was a step towards bridging the divide between them. He observed her, noting the way she moved, the way she handled herself, and the quiet strength that belied her past experiences. Consequently, the true nature of their situation began to dawn on them both. She was no longer a commodity, no longer the unwanted woman. She was a person, capable of laughter, of resilience, and of a capacity for kindness that had been hidden beneath the layers of hardship. He, in turn, was no longer a solitary figure. He was now responsible for another human being, a responsibility that both challenged and invigorated him. He found himself speaking more, sharing stories of his life in the woods, describing the beauty of the changing seasons and the quiet satisfaction of hard labor. Conversely, the small gestures of kindness slowly began to transform her. The fear in her eyes began to diminish, replaced by a flicker of hope. The constant tension in her shoulders relaxed, and a tentative smile occasionally graced her lips. She started to help with the chores, her movements becoming more confident, her interactions with him more natural. She began to speak, sharing fragments of her past, the reasons for her rejection, the hopes and dreams that had been shattered. Another crucial layer is the realization that their shared journey was more than just a physical relocation. It was a journey of the heart, a slow, deliberate process of healing and reconnection. Their shared experiences, both the mundane and the extraordinary, were gradually stripping away the layers of fear and distrust, revealing the genuine human beings beneath. He found himself looking forward to her presence, to the quiet comfort of her company, to the shared meals and the shared silences. Now consider how this applies when you seek connection, or when you are confronted with a difficult situation. The path to reconciliation may not be easy, but every act of kindness, every shared moment, can be a step towards healing. The world was changing, and so were they. The dusty road was leading them not only to a new destination, but also to a new beginning. The wagon, once a symbol of their isolation, was now a vessel of hope, carrying them towards an uncertain but undeniably promising future. They were two lost souls, brought together by circumstance and now slowly, deliberately, finding their way back to themselves and to each other. The first glimpse of Silas's cabin, nestled amidst the towering pines, was a revelation for Clara. It wasn't a grand dwelling, but it was sturdy, clean, and most importantly his. This was not a life of destitution, it was a life of self-sufficiency, of independence carved from the wilderness. Furthermore, the stark contrast between the harsh landscape and the warmth of the cabin's interior signaled a turning point in her perception of Silas and their shared future. The simple act of building a fire, the aroma of wood smoke mingling with the scent of brewing coffee, created an atmosphere of security she hadn't known for years. The cabin's contents, though few, spoke volumes about Silas's character. Books, worn and well-loved, lined a shelf hinting at a hidden intellectual curiosity. Tools meticulously organized reflected his respect for craftsmanship and his dedication to his trade. Consequently, it was here, within the confines of this humble abode, that Clara began to truly understand the man she had been brought to. She saw his quiet strength, his unwavering integrity, and his deep connection to the natural world. She saw the potential for a life beyond the shadows of the past. Building on this, however, was the subtle shift in roles. Silas, accustomed to his solitary existence, found himself becoming a reluctant caregiver. He had to learn how to provide, not just for himself but for another. The simple tasks of gathering firewood, preparing meals, and ensuring the cabin's warmth took on a new significance. Clara, in turn, began to shed the mantle of the unwanted. She started to contribute, her hands finding new purpose in the domestic sphere. She learned to cook, to mend clothes, and to tend to the small garden that Silas had started outside the cabin. Conversely, the dynamics shifted as they began to reveal aspects of their past. Silas, usually reticent, shared stories of his childhood, his family, and the reasons he had chosen a life of solitude. Clara, in turn, confided in him about the circumstances that had led to her being ostracized from society and the cruelties she had endured. These revelations, shared in hushed tones by the flickering firelight, were not merely confessions, they were acts of trust, a testament to the growing bond between them. Another crucial layer is the influence of the seasons. The harshness of the winter months with its biting winds and heavy snowfalls forced them to rely on each other for survival. The long hours spent indoors, sheltered from the storm, fostered a sense of intimacy and shared purpose. The arrival of spring, with its promise of new beginnings, brought a renewed sense of hope. Now, consider how this applies when you face a period of adversity or when you seek to forge a meaningful connection with another person. The challenges you face can be opportunities for growth, for building resilience, and for discovering the strength within yourself and the support of those around you. The simple act of sharing meals, of reading together by the fire, of simply being present in each other's lives transformed their existence. Silas and Clara, two individuals who had been cast aside by society, found solace and companionship in each other's company. Their shared experiences, the trials and triumphs of their daily lives, were weaving a new tapestry of connection, a testament to the power of human resilience and the transformative potential of a second chance. The lonely lumberjack, who had sought only supplies, had found something far more valuable, a partner, a confidant, and a reason to embrace the future. The transformation, however, extended beyond the confines of their shared dwelling. The rigid structures of the town, the societal norms that had once condemned Clara, began to loosen their grip. News of Silas's actions, of the lumberjack who had bought a woman spread like wildfire, igniting a mix of curiosity, disapproval, and surprisingly, a nascent respect. Some scoffed, clinging to their prejudices, yet others, perhaps weary of their own lives, found themselves reconsidering the rigid lines they had drawn. Furthermore, the shift was most evident in the subtle changes in the town's interactions. The averted gazes became less frequent, replaced by hesitant nods or brief acknowledgements. The whispers, once sharp and accusatory, softened, replaced by a muted curiosity. The initial ostracism that had marked Clara's arrival began to dissipate. She was no longer simply the woman, she became Silas's Clara, a subtle but significant shift in perception. Consequently, their interactions with the town slowly began to evolve. Silas, previously content with his solitude, found himself venturing into town more frequently, not just for supplies, but to engage with the townsfolk. He became a silent advocate for Clara, his very presence a testament to the possibility of change. Clara, emboldened by Silas's support, began to cautiously participate in community activities. She helped at the general store, offered her sewing skills to the local women, and even, on occasion, attended the church services. Conversely, the town's initial resistance gradually began to crumble. The hard-heartedness of some slowly gave way to a grudging acceptance. The women, initially wary, found themselves drawn to Clara's quiet competence and her unwavering kindness. The men, witnessing Silas's unwavering devotion, began to see her not as a pariah, but as a woman worthy of respect. Another crucial layer is the profound impact of their actions on the town's children. The children, unburdened by the prejudices of their elders, saw only the inherent goodness in Clara. They flocked to her, drawn to her gentle nature and her willingness to listen. They saw in her a kindred spirit, someone who offered them kindness and understanding. These interactions, small in themselves, served as a powerful counterpoint to the town's entrenched biases. Now consider how this applies when you witness injustice or when you encounter resistance to change. The path to transformation is seldom smooth. It requires courage, persistence, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. It also requires a deep understanding of the human heart. Like Silas, you might find that your actions, even the simplest ones, can have a ripple effect, inspiring others to reconsider their own preconceived notions. The journey towards acceptance, like the journey of Silas and Clara, is often a long and arduous one, but it is a journey worth undertaking. The transformative power of love, understanding, and kindness can erode even the most entrenched prejudices, paving the way for a more compassionate and equitable society. The echoes of their transformation resonated beyond the immediate circle of their lives, touching the very fabric of redemption society. The story of Silas and Clara, a tale of redemption and resilience, began to circulate, not just as gossip, but as a potent parable. Furthermore, the impact wasn't merely anecdotal. It spurred tangible shifts in the town's collective consciousness. The very notion of unwanted individuals, once summarily discarded, was now viewed with a degree of scrutiny, a questioning of the prevailing assumptions. Building on this, the dusty streets of redemption witnessed a subtle but significant change in the dynamics of social gatherings. The women, previously bound by unspoken rules and societal expectations, began to loosen their rigid adherence to convention. They included Clara in their circles, sharing recipes, offering assistance, and slowly, tentatively building friendships. Consequently, the rigid social hierarchies, once seemingly immutable, began to show cracks. The barriers separating the haves and the have-nots became less defined, replaced by a nascent sense of community. Conversely, the men, too, experienced a change in perspective. Witnessing Silas's unwavering commitment to Clara, they began to reevaluate their own relationships and their treatment of women. The rough edges of their behavior softened, replaced by a newfound respect for the women in their lives. The saloons, once havens of boisterous camaraderie and casual disrespect, began to witness a shift in tone. The boisterous laughter was tempered, and the objectification of women became less prevalent. Another crucial layer is the ripple effect this transformation had on the town's economy. The local businesses, initially skeptical, found themselves benefiting from the increased sense of community and the influx of new customers. Clara's skills in sewing and mending became sought after, creating a small but steady income for her. Silas, in turn, gained a reputation for his honesty and his hard work, attracting more clients for his lumber business. Now, consider how this applies when facing deeply ingrained societal biases. The story of Silas and Clara offers a potent lesson. It teaches us that change, although often slow and incremental, can be achieved through compassion, understanding, and unwavering commitment to human dignity. The transformation of redemption wasn't a sudden revolution. It was a gradual evolution, fueled by the quiet acts of kindness and the unwavering belief in the possibility of a better world. The story of Silas and Clara reminds us that every act of empathy, every gesture of acceptance, can contribute to the dismantling of prejudice and the building of a more just and equitable society. In essence, the narrative has unfolded like a slow thaw, where the icy grip of isolation gradually yields to the warmth of connection. We've witnessed a landscape transformed not by grand pronouncements or sweeping decrees, but by the subtle, persistent force of human will. The initial setting, a stark tableau of loneliness and despair, has been subtly reshaped, mirroring the internal shifts within our protagonists. The very air in the town has seemed to lighten, as if the weight of judgment once so palpable began to dissipate. Drawing these strands together, we see that the narrative transcends a mere story of individual redemption. It serves as a potent illustration of how societal structures, however rigid, are susceptible to the transformative power of human empathy. The story's impact stems from the unexpected intersection of two seemingly disparate forces: profound personal anguish and the quiet yet unwavering commitment to a shared future. It's a testament to the fact that even in the most unforgiving environments, the seeds of change can take root, nurtured by the simple acts of kindness and the courage to defy prevailing norms. In light of these insights, the path forward becomes clearer. We've observed a microcosm of broader human experiences where the act of looking beyond superficial judgments can initiate a cascade of positive consequences. The narrative has repeatedly emphasized the significance of viewing individuals not as fixed entities, but as works in progress, capable of growth, resilience, and most importantly, the capacity to affect the world around them. It's a narrative that underscores the significance of recognizing the inherent value in every human life, regardless of circumstance or perceived worth. As we pivot towards the final reflection, consider the narrative's resonance with the broader human experience. Think of it as a pebble dropped into a still pond, the ripples of change spreading outwards, affecting everything they touch. The initial impact, the moment of choice, set in motion a series of interconnected events, each one contributing to the evolving landscape. The journey wasn't without its challenges. The path to transformation was often arduous, fraught with uncertainty. Reflecting on this journey so far, we see how the narrative's beauty lies in its simplicity. It's a story of ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances and finding within themselves the resources to overcome adversity. The narrative reveals the profound impact of looking beyond the surface, of recognizing the shared humanity that binds us all. It's a story that invites us to reconsider our own perceptions, to challenge our own prejudices, and to embrace the possibility of transformation, both in ourselves and in the world around us. The enduring resonance of Silas and Clara's story lies not merely in its depiction of individual transformation, but in its broader implications for human connection and societal progress. It is a testament to the idea that even in the face of pervasive prejudice and isolation, the human spirit possesses an extraordinary capacity for resilience and redemption. The narrative, far from being a simple romance, serves as a powerful allegory, a mirror reflecting our shared capacity for both cruelty and compassion. The tale of the lonely lumberjack and the unwanted woman underscores the transformative power of empathy. It highlights the simple truth that looking beyond the surface, recognizing the inherent dignity in every individual, can spark a chain reaction of positive change. The shift in redemption, the subtle yet profound evolution of its social dynamics, serves as a potent reminder that societal structures are not immutable. They are rather shaped by the collective actions and beliefs of their inhabitants. The story, therefore, encourages us to challenge our own preconceived notions. It invites us to question the judgments we readily make, the labels we readily apply, and the barriers we unconsciously erect between ourselves and others. It prompts us to consider the possibility that the unwanted, the outsider, might possess a hidden strength, a resilience born from hardship. The narrative subtly underscores the idea that we are all, in some way, seeking connection, yearning for acceptance, and longing to be seen for who we truly are. The lasting impact of the narrative stems from its unwavering faith in the human spirit. It's a story that reminds us that even in the darkest of times, hope can flourish, and that kindness can be a revolutionary act. The transformation of redemption wasn't a sudden event. It was a gradual process, fueled by the unwavering commitment of two individuals who dared to defy the status quo. The true practice begins now in our own lives. The challenge lies in carrying the spirit of Silas and Clara forward, in actively seeking out opportunities to connect with others, to challenge our own biases, and to create a world where everyone is valued and respected. It's about recognizing the inherent worth in every individual, about embracing the possibility of transformation, and about understanding that even the smallest act of compassion can have a profound and lasting impact. The legacy of the lumberjack and the woman he rescued is not just their story, it is now ours to carry forward.